Anupalabhi, non-apprehension. Anupalabhi, often referred to as non-apprehension, is another important pramana, means of knowledge, in Indian philosophy, particularly within the Nyaya and Vedanta traditions. It is a unique form of reasoning or means of knowledge that occurs when something is not perceived, not experienced, or not apprehended. Anupalabhi is not about the knowledge of what is present or what exists, but is instead concerned with the knowledge of absence or non-existence of something in a specific context. This pramana is used to understand the non-apprehension of objects or situations that should be perceptible, but due to their absence, they are not apprehended by the mind. In simpler terms, Anupalabhi deals with the knowledge or awareness of what is not present or does not exist. It is sometimes considered the converse of perception, pratyaksha, because instead of affirming the presence of something, it affirms the absence of something. 1. Definition and understanding of Anupalabhi. Anupalabhi is defined as the knowledge of the absence of something. It arises when one does not perceive an object that should be perceivable or when something expected is not found. The absence of a known object or condition leads to knowledge that the object or condition does not exist in that context. It provides valid knowledge about what is not present, just as pratyaksha provides valid knowledge about what is present. For instance, if you are looking for a book on a table and you do not find it, the knowledge you acquire that the book is not on the table is an example of Anupalabhi. This knowledge is not based on direct sensory perception of the book's presence but instead on the fact that its absence is perceived. 2. The nature of Anupalabhi. The core of Anupalabhi lies in the non-perception of something that is supposed to be perceived. The knowledge gained from Anupalabhi is about what is not observed, and this non-observation helps affirm its non-existence. For example, non-perception of a coin. If someone tells you that a coin is placed in a box, and you look inside and do not find it, you acquire the knowledge that there is no coin in the box. This non-perception or absence of the coin in the box gives you valid knowledge, and this is an instance of Anupalabhi. The key point in Anupalabhi is that absence is as much a form of knowledge as presence. It is a negative epistemic experience but still significant and important in understanding the world. 3. Examples of Anupalabhi, non-apprehension. Example 1. If a person looks for their wallet in their bag but does not find it, they gain the knowledge of non-apprehension, that the wallet is not in the bag. This is an instance of Anupalabhi because they have perceived the absence of the wallet, which is a valid and reliable source of knowledge. Example 2. When you search for a specific tree in a forest and do not find it, your knowledge that the tree is not there is an example of Anupalabhi. The tree's absence from the expected location provides you with valid knowledge about its non-existence in that space. Example 3. In the philosophical context of Anupalabhi, the absence of the self, Atman, in certain material things is used to affirm that the self is not present in those things. For example, when looking at a table, the non-apprehension of the self in the table leads to the understanding that the self is distinct from inanimate objects. 4. The role of Anupalabhi in epistemology. In epistemology, Anupalabhi plays a significant role because it allows one to recognize and affirm the absence of things, which is just as important as recognizing their presence. It offers a method to form conclusions when something that should exist is not found. Anupalabhi is especially important in contexts where an object or event is presumed to be present but is found to be absent. In such cases, the knowledge gained from this absence helps in understanding and reasoning about the world. For example, in legal and judicial reasoning, the absence of evidence might be used to conclude the non-existence of a fact or event. Anupalabhi also plays a crucial role in Indian metaphysical discussions, particularly in the Vedanta tradition, where the absence of the ultimate reality in the material world is used as a basis for establishing the distinct nature of the Brahman, the ultimate reality. 5. Characteristics of Anupalabhi. The key characteristics of Anupalabhi are: absence knowledge. It provides knowledge of absence or non-existence, in contrast to perception which provides knowledge of presence or existence. Contradiction resolution. It helps resolve contradictions by affirming the non-existence of something that should be present or has been previously mentioned. Indirect knowledge. It is indirect knowledge gained from the absence of something rather than a direct perception of something. Complementary to perception. Anupalabhi complements pratyaksha because while perception gives knowledge of the presence of things, Anupalabhi provides knowledge of their absence. 6. The role of Anupalabhi in Indian philosophy. In Indian philosophical schools like Nyaya, Anupalabhi is recognized as one of the fundamental pramanas, means of knowledge. It is considered an essential component in gaining knowledge of the world, especially when dealing with the question of the non-existence or absence of objects or events. In Vedanta, Anupalabhi is used to affirm the absence of the self in material things and to support the non-dualism Advaita view that the ultimate reality, Brahman, is distinct from the material world. 7. Previous year UGC Net questions with answers. Question 2023. Which of the following best illustrates the concept of Anupalabhi in Indian epistemology? A. The knowledge gained by seeing a tree. B. The knowledge gained by the non-perception of an object. C. The knowledge gained from reading a text. D. The knowledge gained through inference from prior knowledge. Answer. B. The knowledge gained by the non-perception of an object. Here, 2023 UGC Net Paper 1. Question 2022. Anupalabhi as a means of knowledge refers to: A. Knowledge gained through direct sensory perception. B. Knowledge gained through the non-apprehension of an object. C. Knowledge gained through scripture. D. Knowledge gained through reasoning. Answer. B. Knowledge gained through the non-apprehension of an object. Here, 2022 UGC Net Paper 1. Question 2021. In Indian logic, which of the following is Anupalabhi? A. Seeing a pot on the table. B. Recognizing the absence of a coin in your pocket. C. Inferring the location of a person based on their last known position. D. Listening to the testimony of a witness. Answer. B. Recognizing the absence of a coin in your pocket. Here, 2021 UGC Net Paper 1. Conclusion. Anupalabhi, non-apprehension, is an important epistemological concept in Indian philosophy that allows us to recognize the absence or non-existence of an object. It is a valid means of knowledge and plays a crucial role in understanding situations where something expected is not perceived. Knowledge gained through Anupalabhi helps to affirm the non-existence of things, contributing to logical reasoning, metaphysical understanding, and practical decision-making in various contexts. Understanding Anupalabhi is essential for those preparing for exams like the UGC Net JRF Environmental Sciences. It expands the range of epistemological tools available for analysis and reasoning. You said. Structure and kinds of Anumana inference. ChatGPT said. Structure and kinds of Anumana inference. Anumana inference is one of the important pramanas, means of knowledge, in Indian philosophy, particularly in the Nyaya school of logic. Anumana refers to the process of reasoning that leads to the knowledge of something that is not directly perceived, based on a logical relationship between premises and conclusions. It is a way of establishing knowledge by drawing conclusions from observed facts or premises. In Anumana, there is always a logical connection between the observed facts and the conclusion that follows. The basic structure of Anumana involves reasoning from a general principle or premise to a specific instance, using the syllogistic form. 1. Structure of Anumana inference. The structure of Anumana follows a classical syllogistic format, which is often represented as follows. Major premise phi of t, a general statement that expresses the universal connection between a property and a subject. Minor premise pradinya, the specific case or observation that is related to the general principle. Conclusion or niyama, the inference or conclusion that follows from applying the general principle to the specific case. This is typically structured in the following way. Phi of t, where there is smoke, there is fire. Pradinya, this mountain has smoke. Conclusion, therefore, there is fire on this mountain. The reasoning follows this deductive pattern, where the major premise establishes a general law, such as the relationship between smoke and fire. The minor premise presents The reasoning follows this deductive pattern, where the major premise establishes a general law, such as the relationship between smoke and fire. The minor premise presents a specific case, the presence of smoke on a mountain, and the conclusion deduces the presence of fire from a general law. The basic elements of Anumana. Phi of t, universal relation, the relationship or universal connection between the property and the object. Pradinya, observation, the specific observation or premise related to the object or phenomenon. Sadhan, ground, the basis or the medium through which the inference is established. Conclusion, the logical inference drawn from the above premises. 2. Kinds of Anumana. There are primarily two kinds of Anumana in Indian logic, based on how the premises and conclusions are constructed. A Swarthanumana, inference for oneself. Swarthanumana is an inference made for oneself based on personal observation and reasoning. It is an internal or subjective process where an individual draws conclusions based on their own perception of the world. This kind of inference is self-oriented and is often used in everyday reasoning. Example. Premise 1, the ground is wet. Premise 2, when it rains, the ground gets wet. Conclusion, therefore, it has rained. In this example, the person infers the occurrence of rain based on the wetness of the ground and their prior knowledge of the relationship between rain and wet ground. B. Pararthanumana, inference for others. Pararthanumana is an inference made for others, where the individual reasons in such a way that the conclusion is presented to others to convince them of its validity. This is often used in argumentation or when explaining a phenomenon to others. In Pararthanumana, the reasoning process involves making the premises explicit so that the inference can be accepted by others. Example. Premise 1, there is smoke on the mountain. Premise 2, wherever there is smoke, there is fire. Conclusion, therefore, there must be fire on the mountain. This reasoning is not just for personal knowledge, but it is also intended to be persuasive to others, showing them the connection between smoke and fire. See Anumana based on phi of t, universal relation. In this type of Anumana, the inference is drawn from a universal relation, phi of t, which is an established and universally acknowledged principle. The phi of t is considered a law or a generally accepted fact, and it forms the basis of the inference. Example. Phi of t, wherever there is smoke, there is fire. Premise, there is smoke on the hill. Conclusion, therefore, there is fire on the hill. The inference is based on a universally acknowledged law, phi of t, which is applied to a specific instance, the presence of smoke. D. Anumana based on sadhan, ground or cause. This type of Anumana emphasizes the cause or ground that supports the inference. It relates to reasoning where the effect is inferred based on a known cause. The inference is based on a universally acknowledged law, phi of t, which is applied to a specific instance, the presence of smoke. The inference is based on a Swarthanumana is an inference made for oneself based on personal observation and reasoning. It is an internal or subjective process where an individual draws conclusions based on their own perception of the world. This kind of inference is self-oriented and is often used in everyday reasoning. Example. Premise 1, the ground is wet. Premise 2, when it rains, the ground gets wet. Conclusion, therefore, it has rained. In this example, the person infers the occurrence of rain based on the wetness of the ground and their prior knowledge of the relationship between rain and wet ground. B. Pararthanumana, inference for others. Pararthanumana is an inference made for others, where the individual reasons in such a way that the conclusion is presented to others to convince them of its validity. This is often used in argumentation or when explaining a phenomenon to others. In Pararthanumana, the reasoning process involves making the premises explicit so that the inference can be accepted by others. Example. Premise 1, there is smoke on the mountain. Premise 2, wherever there is smoke, there is fire. Conclusion, therefore, there must be fire on the mountain. This reasoning is not just for personal knowledge, but it is also intended to be persuasive to others, showing them the connection between smoke and fire. See Anumana based on phi of t, universal relation. In type of Anumana, the inference is drawn from a universal relation, phi of t, which is an established and universally acknowledged principle. The phi of t is considered a law or a generally accepted fact, and it forms the basis of the inference. Example. Phi of t, wherever there is smoke, there is fire. Premise, there is smoke on the hill. Conclusion, therefore, there is fire on the hill. The inference is based on a universally acknowledged law, phi of t, which is applied to a specific instance, the presence of smoke. D. Anumana based on sadhan, ground or cause. This type of Anumana emphasizes the cause or ground that supports the inference. It relates to reasoning where the effect is inferred based on a known cause. The inference is made from the fact that a certain cause is present, and from that, the effect is inferred. Example. Premise, this person is sneezing. Known cause, when a person sneezes, they might have a cold. Conclusion, therefore, this person might have a cold. This inference is based on the cause-effect relationship between sneezing and having a cold. Ikiadi, recognized knowledge-based inference. In this form of Anumana, reasoning is based on accepted or recognized knowledge that is established through experience or tradition. It involves using knowledge that has been verified and accepted by others, rather than personal observation or universal principles. Example. Premise, this person is holding an umbrella. Recognized knowledge, people generally carry umbrellas when it is about to rain. Conclusion, therefore, it is likely that it is going to rain. In this case, the reasoning is based on the shared knowledge or recognized pattern of behavior carrying an umbrella when it rains. 3. The process of Anumana inference. The process of inference typically follows a specific logical pattern, which can be outlined as observation pradanya, the initial observation or the specific case is noted. For example, the presence of smoke on the hill. Generalization phi ft, a general law or relation is known. For example, the law that wherever there is smoke, there is fire. Application of general law, the general law is applied to the specific case. In this case, because there is smoke, fire must be present. Conclusion, the inference is drawn, which is the conclusion based on the application of the general law to the specific case. 4. Examples of Anumana inference. Example 1, phi ft based. Premise 1, smoke is observed on the mountain. Premise 2, wherever there is smoke, there is fire. Conclusion, therefore, there is fire on the mountain. Example 2, sudden based. Premise 1, a person is coughing. Premise 2, coughing is often caused by cold or dust. Conclusion, therefore, the person might have a cold. Example 3, Kiadi based. Premise, the person is holding a watering can. Recognized knowledge, people use watering cans to water plants. Conclusion, therefore, the person is likely watering the plants. 5. Previous year UGC Net questions with answers. Question 2023, which of the following is an example of Anumana in reasoning? A. A person sees a book and concludes that it is a book. B. A person smells smoke and concludes that there is fire. C. A person hears a sound and recognizes the source. D. A person feels cold and concludes that it is winter. Answer, B. A person smells smoke and concludes that there is fire. Year, 2023 UGC Net Paper 2. Question 2022, in Anumana, the conclusion is derived from A. Direct perception of the object. B. The relationship between a general rule and a specific instance. C. The testimony of a reliable person. D. The knowledge of non-apprehension. Answer, B. The relationship between a general rule and a specific instance. Year, 2022 UGC Net Paper 2. Question 2021, what is the basis of the inference in the syllogism? Wherever there is smoke, there is fire. A. Pratyaksha, perception. B. Anumana inference. C. Shabda, verbal testimony. D. Upamana, comparison. Answer, B. Anumana inference. Year, 2021 UGC Net Paper 2. Conclusion. Anumana inference is a powerful means of knowledge in Indian philosophy that helps us derive conclusions based on general laws or premises. By understanding the structure and kinds of Anumana, individuals can enhance their reasoning abilities and better understand how to apply logic in different contexts. This pramana is crucial for making valid inferences in daily life and academic reasoning. You said. Phi ft invariable relation. ChatGPT said. Phi ft invariable relation. Phi ft is a fundamental concept in Indian logic, particularly in the Nyaya school, and plays a central role in Anumana inference, one of the key pramanas means of knowledge. It refers to the universal, invariable relation or connection between two phenomena, such that wherever one phenomenon is present, the other must also be present. Phi ft is the underlying principle that supports valid reasoning in Anumana. In its simplest terms, phi ft is the law of universal concomitance, the consistent, unbroken relationship between two events or properties. This relationship is the foundation upon which inferences are drawn. It ensures that if a particular feature is found in a subject, a specific property or attribute must also exist in that subject, based on the universal connection. 1. Understanding phi ft. Phi ft is often referred to as a universal relation, or invariable concomitance, because it is a relationship that holds true in all instances of the phenomena involved. It is the key to reasoning through general laws and applying them to specific instances. For example, the classical syllogism. Phi ft, wherever there is smoke, there is fire. Observation, there is smoke on the hill. Conclusion, therefore, there must be fire on the hill. In this case, the phi ft is the universal rule or relation that, wherever there is smoke, there is fire. This is the law of invariable connection between smoke and fire. 2. Characteristics of phi ft. Invariable, the relationship must hold universally, meaning that in all cases, the presence of one phenomenon must always be accompanied by the presence of the other. This makes phi ft an absolute and reliable relation for inference. Indispensable for inference, phi ft is essential for drawing valid conclusions in Anumana inference. Without a universally acknowledged phi ft, an inference would not be logically valid because the premises would not be universally applicable. Factual and observational, phi ft is derived from consistent observations of the natural world, where the connection between phenomena has been repeatedly observed to hold true. 3. Types of phi ft. Phi ft can be categorized in different ways based on how the relation is understood and established. A regular phi ft, samanya phi ft. This is the most common type of phi ft, where the relation between the two phenomena is universally and regularly observed. It is the foundation of most logical reasoning. Example. Phi ft, wherever there is fire, there is heat. Observation, there is fire in this object. Conclusion, therefore, there must be heat in this object. Here, the phi ft is the regular and constant relationship between fire and heat. B. Irregular phi ft, vishesha phi ft. In this case, the relation may not be universally applicable but can be seen in specific contexts. This form of phi ft applies in situations where the invariable connection is established under particular circumstances. Example. Phi ft, wherever there is lightning, there is thunder. Observation, there is lightning in the sky. Conclusion, therefore, there must be thunder. This phi ft works well in most weather conditions but may not be universally true in all cases, e.g., thunder may not always accompany lightning in some atmospheric conditions. 4. Importance of phi ft in valid inference. Phi ft is crucial because it validates the Anumana inference process. In the syllogistic structure of inference, the phi ft forms the foundation of the major premise. It establishes a universally accepted law that allows us to infer the presence of one property from the observation of another. For inference to be valid, the phi ft must be firmly established and universally applicable. The phi ft must be observed repeatedly, ensuring that it holds true in all cases where the phenomena are found. 5. Examples of BIFD in everyday reasoning. Example 1. BIFD is universal concomitance. BIFD, wherever there is smoke, there is fire. Observation, smoke is observed on the mountain. Conclusion, therefore, there is fire on the mountain. In this example, the BIFD, where there is smoke, there is fire, is universally accepted and applied to the specific case of smoke on the mountain, leading to the conclusion that fire must also be present. Example 2. BIFD in the context of health. BIFD, wherever there is a fever, there is often a viral infection. Observation, the person has a fever. Conclusion, therefore, the person might have a viral infection. Here, the BIFD, fever implies viral infection, is generally true in many cases and can be used as a basis for making an inference about the person's health. 6. BIFD in the role of knowledge. The reliability of BIFD is crucial for Anumana because it forms the basis of reasoning. If BIFD is incorrect, the inference drawn from it will be invalid. Therefore, it is important to ensure that the relationship between the two phenomena, the subject and the attribute, is universally true. This emphasizes the role of empirical knowledge and observation in establishing valid BIFD. 7. BIFD and inference in philosophy. In the Nyaya school of philosophy, BIFD is central to the theory of knowledge and is often used to demonstrate the process of valid reasoning, called Tarka. In this context, the idea of BIFD emphasizes the importance of rationality and empirical observation in understanding the world. It also ties into the broader notion of pramana, valid sources of knowledge, where BIFD serves as a reliable basis for valid knowledge acquisition through reasoning. 8. Previous year UGC NET questions with answers. Question 2022. In the syllogism, wherever there is smoke, there is fire, the relationship between smoke and fire is known as A. Anumana inference. B. BIFD universal concomitance. C. Pratyaksha perception. D. Upamana comparison. Answer. B. BIFD universal concomitance. Year 2022 UGC NET paper 2. Question 2021. Which of the following is true about BIFD and Anumana? A. BIFD refers to a particular case where inference does not apply. B. BIFD is the universal relation between two phenomena in the process of inference. C. BIFD is the process of sensory perception. D. BIFD is a type of verbal testimony. Answer. B. BIFD is the universal relation between two phenomena in the process of inference. Year 2021 UGC NET paper 2. Conclusion. BIFD is an essential concept in the Indian system of logic, particularly in Anumana inference, where it serves as the foundation for valid reasoning. The idea of invariable relation ensures that the reasoning process is consistent and reliable, allowing us to draw conclusions based on universal principles. Understanding and applying BIFD is critical for anyone seeking to master Indian logic and reasoning in both philosophical and practical contexts. You said. Hetthabhas's fallacies of inference. ChatGPT said. Hetthabhas's fallacies of inference. Hetthabhasa refers to the fallacies or errors in reasoning that occur during the process of inference Anumana in Indian logic, particularly within the Nyaya school. These fallacies arise when the reasoning used to support a conclusion is flawed, even though it may seem valid at first glance. They are essentially false or defective reasons that lead to incorrect conclusions. In formal terms, Hetthabhasa refers to any fallacy where the reason provided does not adequately support the conclusion, resulting in an invalid or misleading inference. These fallacies undermine the reliability of the reasoning process and are a key concept in Indian logic, helping to refine and sharpen the process of valid inference. 1. Understanding Hetthabhasa. The concept of Hetthabhasa involves recognizing that an inference is valid only when it is based on a correct reason that is universally applicable BIFD and has a proper relation to the conclusion. If the reason provided is inadequate or inappropriate, it leads to a defective inference, which is known as a Hetthabhasa. A Hetthabhasa might occur due to a wrong reason being used to support a conclusion, a misapplication of a valid reason in a situation where it does not hold, a false analogy or comparison being drawn, premises that do not provide sufficient support for the conclusion. In short, Hetthabhasa disrupts the process of drawing valid inferences, making the reasoning logically unsound. 2. Types of Hetthabhasa's fallacies of inference. There are several types of Hetthabhasa in Indian logic, and they can be broadly categorized into different kinds of fallacies based on the nature of the reasoning error. Some of the major Hetthabhasas include Asabhyabhichara or regular reasoning. Explanation. This fallacy occurs when the reason used in the inference is not universally applicable to all instances of the subject. It is a case of irregular reasoning, where the reason does not consistently hold in every situation. Example. The man is sick because he has a fever. The reasoning may be faulty if the fever is due to an unrelated cause, such as a non-infectious illness or an environmental factor. B. Virata contradiction. Explanation. In this fallacy, the reason contradicts the conclusion, making the inference logically invalid. This happens when the reason and the conclusion are inconsistent with each other. Example. The object is white because it is black. Asabhyabhichara or regular reasoning. Explanation. This fallacy occurs when the reason used in the inference is not universally applicable to all instances of the subject. It is a case of irregular reasoning, where the reason does not consistently hold in every situation. Example. The man is sick because he has a fever. The reasoning may be faulty if the fever is due to an unrelated cause, such as a non-infectious illness or an environmental factor. B. Virata contradiction. Explanation. In this fallacy, the reason contradicts the conclusion, making the inference logically invalid. This happens when the reason and the conclusion are inconsistent with each other. Example. The object is white because it is black. The reason, black, contradicts the conclusion, white, leading to an invalid inference. See Prakara, improper example. Explanation. This occurs when the reason or example used to support the conclusion is incorrect or irrelevant to the subject being discussed. It is based on an inappropriate analogy or example that does not serve as a valid representative for the subject. Example. The mango is sweet because the apple is sweet. This is an invalid inference if we are not comparing similar characteristics or if the two fruits' sweetness is due to different reasons. D. Asiddha and proven reason. Explanation. This fallacy arises when the reason provided to support the conclusion is not proven or accepted as valid. The inference cannot hold if the reason is itself in doubt or is yet to be verified. Example. The tree must have grown taller because it is receiving more sunlight. The reason might be unproven, especially if other factors, such as soil quality or water, are also influencing the tree's growth. E. Hetthabhasa due to a false generalization. Explanation. This fallacy occurs when the reason used in the inference is based on a false generalization. The inference applies a rule that does not hold universally or applies it too broadly. Example. All birds can fly. This penguin is a bird, so it must be able to fly. Here, the generalization, all birds can fly, is false because some birds, like penguins, cannot fly. F. Sankhya numerical fallacy. Explanation. This fallacy arises when the reasoning is based on incorrect or irrelevant numerical data. The numerical aspect of the inference is either exaggerated, underemphasized, or irrelevant. Example, there are 10 fish in the pond, therefore, the pond must contain fish. The numerical data is irrelevant, as there might be only a few fish in the pond, or the pond might be overfished. Importance of recognizing heterobases. Recognizing and avoiding heterobases is crucial for ensuring that inference anumana remains valid and logically sound. When reasoning or arguing, it is essential to check whether the reason offered can be universally applied to the conclusion and whether it holds true in all relevant instances. In Indian logic, the identification of heterobases is a critical skill for sharpening logical reasoning and ensuring that inferences are both valid and reliable. Without this careful scrutiny, conclusions drawn from faulty reasoning can lead to misunderstandings, misinterpretations, and erroneous beliefs. 4. Examples of heterobases in everyday reasoning. Example 1. Savyabhichara. Reason, the sky is blue because it is daytime. Fallacy, this is an example of Savyabhichara, as the reason, it is daytime, does not universally explain why the sky is blue. The sky can appear blue even during certain moments in the evening or morning, depending on atmospheric conditions. Example 2. Pairata. Reason, the plant is growing because it is not getting enough sunlight. Fallacy, this is an example of Vairata because the reason contradicts the conclusion. If the plant is not getting enough sunlight, it should not be growing well. Therefore, the reasoning is flawed. Example 3. Prakara. Reason, the dog is barking because it is a large animal. Fallacy, this is a prakara fallacy, as the reasoning does not directly relate to the conclusion. The dog's size is irrelevant to the fact that it is barking. The barking might be due to other factors such as fear, hunger, or external stimuli. 5. Previous year UGC Net questions with answers. Question 2023. Which of the following is an example of a Vairata contradiction? Heterobaza. A. The tree is large because it is small. B. The tree is large because it receives adequate water. C. The tree is small because it gets enough sunlight. D. The tree is growing because it is not watered. Answer. A. The tree is large because it is small. Year 2023 UGC Net Paper 2. Question 2022. Which of the following is a Savyabhichara or regular reasoning fallacy? A. The cat is meowing because it is hungry. B. The bird is chirping because it is a mammal. C. The dog is barking because it is a large animal. D. The dog is barking because it is frightened. Answer. C. The dog is barking because it is a large animal. Year 2022 UGC Net Paper 2. Conclusion. Heterobases are critical to understanding the structure and potential weaknesses in reasoning processes, particularly in anumana inference. These fallacies arise when the reasoning is flawed, leading to incorrect conclusions. Recognizing these fallacies is essential for sharpening one's logical reasoning skills, both in philosophical contexts and in everyday life. By avoiding these logical mistakes, we ensure that our conclusions are based on valid and reliable reasoning, leading to clearer and more accurate understanding.